Mic check 1 2 1 2. What up though? What it do? It's your boy Coach Chris. Reporting live from Coach Chris channel. Saturday. I've been meaning to, do this video for a minute, but life been hectic. So finally got some time. Then relax and put son to bed. So let's get into it. We're gonna touch on some boxing. It's been a good year for boxing. It's been a very solid year for boxing. One of the best years in a long time, honestly. And I'm just gonna touch over more so the fights. It's been a good year because of the fights. I'm not gonna get into any narratives. I'm not gonna get into anything going on outside the ring. I'm strictly gonna focus on the fights and why this year has been so good in boxing. So let's start from the beginning. The first major card of the year was Gervonta Tank Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia. I wasn't gonna buy this card because I already knew the outcome. I knew what was gonna happen. He brought him up from 130. I don't know why he's still doing things of that nature, but they was using this as a selling point, as it being a tune-up for Ryan Garcia. Only reason I bought this, two reasons. One reason, the undercard. The undercard was dope. It had a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of talent on the undercard. And my cousin was in town too. Shout out to my cousin Nick. He was in town from Atlanta. Hit me up early in the day. Was like, hey man, anybody got the fight? I was like, damn, I gotta buy this mother. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the first fight on the card was Demetrius Andrade versus somebody named Nicholson. His first fight at 168 pounds. He looked pretty decent, came out slugging. Usually he a pure boxer, but he came out slugging, showing he can hang with the big boys. His first fight at 168, 10th round, unanimous decision. The next fight was Rashidi Ellis versus Romain Villa. This was Rashidi Ellis' first fight with PBC. It was Andre's first fight with PBC too. Andre came from DAZN. Rashidi Ellis came from Golden Boy, I believe. And it was a lot of hype around Rashidi Ellis. They was trying to build up him versus Jaron Boots Ennis. They even got into it at the press conference. And all I kept hearing about Rashidi Ellis is he's quick. Rashidi Speedy Ellis. All I kept hearing, man, the boy got some fast hands. So I was looking forward to seeing what he actually brings to the table on the big stage. And he looked good the first couple of rounds, but it was a lot of pity pat, a lot of dancing, a lot of showboating. But the dude kept coming. I never heard of Romain Villa. He kept coming, and after a while, he actually caught up to him. He started landing some of them big shots, and he actually dropped Rashidi Ellis a few times, and I believe he dropped him twice in the 12th round. He ended up getting a 12th round majority decision, and I felt like Rashidi Ellis kind of got exposed a little bit, meaning he ain't really been fighting good competition and people that's actually gonna fight back, and they ain't scared to hit him back. So, he kind of got exposed a little bit. And the next fight was Jaron Ennis versus a nigga named Karen from Russia, I think, something like that. And again, there's been a lot of hype around Jaron Ennis as well. He the next this, he the next that. And he actually struggled this fight. He struggled a lot. And the reason he struggled is because Karen wasn't standing right in front of him. He was actually using some circular movement. And it showed that Boots is his approach is a little immature, because he was kind of in there just trying a lot of stuff, just winging it. And he couldn't cut off the ring. So his performance wasn't that great, even though he pretty much won every round. But he did get hit with some unnecessary shots, and he put off the victory. It wasn't pretty, but he got it done. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot of hype around him and Rashidi Ellis going at it and possibly fighting next if they both put on good performances. But I think this was a thing about matchmaking. I think Rashidi Ellis should have fought Karen, and I think Boots should have fought Romain Villa, which he ended up doing later on in the year anyway. But I think that was matchmaking, and I think both of them underestimated their opponents. But the main event, Gervonta Tank Davis versus Hector Luis Garcia. Garcia coming up from 130 pounds. I don't know why they pulled him up for this. I know for him, it was just a paycheck. It was a bag. A lot of people look like, it's only 5 pounds. What does it matter? But, Tank Davis is supposed to be one of the best fighters in the world. but he's still pulling people up from smaller divisions. But he was kind of getting fanned up a little bit early in the fight. He was getting fanned up. But you know, Tank, he does that. He'll take a couple to see what you're working with. And if you feel like he can take your power, he just go into the high guard, walk you down. You know what I'm saying? Just beat on you. And that's pretty much what he did. Wifey in the background. But yeah, he just, you know, Hector was a smaller man. Punches weren't effective. Tank just started walking him down. He started opening up around like the 6th, 7th round and really started landing them shots and bringing it home. And he couldn't take it. You know what I'm saying? He started catching some temple shots, doing a stanky leg, and he talking about he couldn't see in the corner. So, you know, it was a 9th round TKO. All right, moving on to the next fight of substance was January 14th, the top rank event. Efe Ajagba versus Stephen Shaw. Stephen Shaw, I heard about him because he was a sparring partner with Deontay Wilder, so I was looking forward to seeing him. I heard a lot of good things about him. Pretty good boxer. You know, fundamental standard, use the jab, good foot movement, good upper body movement. Efe Ajagba, he's kind of a project right now, and he's developing as he's going. But he had a good jab. He showed a lot of good patience. He showed a lot of good strength, and he was able to come out with the W12 round unanimous decision. January 21st, you had Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith on the DAZN card. I'm kind of tired of these Liams in the UK, but the reason why this is a fact is because Chris Eubank Jr. actually lost. It was a 4th round knockout, which is surprising to a lot of people. But, you know, it definitely wasn't his first loss. But, you know, he took an L to somebody who's kind of like a journeyman. And at this stage, Chris Eubank is kind of just, you know, he's looking for a bag, kind of just going through the motions, switching trainers. And I know he was with Roy for a minute, but I think he switched to Bomac. I can't remember if he had Bomac in this fight or not, but he lost 4th round knockout. January 28th, you had Artur Beterbiev and Anthony Yarde, which was a goodie. Fought on a DAZN card. Anthony Yarde, I believe his only loss was to Sergey Kovalev. And Artur Beterbiev, he pretty much a machine, man. He can do it all. You know, he can box, he can brawl, he's strong as shit. And he come to fight. And he's not just, he has an IQ. You know what I'm saying? He knows what he's doing, he's aware, and he does everything with a purpose. And Anthony Yarde gave him a good fight. It was a good scrap. It was a good scrap while it lasted. Yarde landed some good stuff. He looked like he was the quicker, more athletic fighter, which he was. But Beterbiev showed his experience, showed his strength, showed his patience and his timing, and his IQ, because he ended up catching him. And he ended up stopping Yarde in the 8th round. All right, moving on to February. You had Ray Vargas versus O'Shaquie Foster. The only reason Ray Vargas is a factor is because he beat the man that beat Gary Russell. I don't think Ray Vargas is that good. He looks a lot older than what he actually is. But O'Shaquie Foster is a good fighter too. So I was looking forward to seeing how that turned out. O'Shaquie Foster did what he do. You know, he outboxed him thoroughly. 12th round unanimous decision. Moving on to March 4th, you had Brandon Figueroa versus Mark Magsayo, which is the man that beat Gary Russell. I honestly think he might have lost to Gary Russell, honestly. Gary Russell he was hurt in the fight, and Gary Russell was one arm. He had one arm, and he ended up outboxing dude and beating dude with one arm. But you know, they gave him the decision. There's a lot going on with Gary Russell, a lot of politics. And Mark Magsayo is he's a Manny Pacquiao fighter, so you know he got the win over Gary Russell. So his legacy was born, and a star was born. But he ran into Brandon Figueroa, who had something to prove. He recently had a loss to Stephen Fulton. He felt like he lost. I mean, he felt like he won, but it was a close fight. But you know, Brandon, he did what he always does. He comes forward, throws a lot of punches and bunches, and you know, he got the victory. It was an entertaining fight, but it was the outcome that I was expecting. Moving on to March 11th, you had Tim Tszyu versus Tony Harrison. Now, Tim Tszyu is the son of a legend, Costa Tszyu, famous for that knockout against Zab Judah when he hit him and he got up and his legs started going everywhere and he was talking to the ref, he ended up falling. But his son is a professional fighter. Somebody I've been hearing about, but I didn't pay him no attention. And he's been supposed to fight Charlo for a while. Charlo pulled out the fight because he hurt his hand. I think he broke his hand or something. So he ended up fighting Tony Harrison, which was a major step-up fight. Tony Harrison is somebody who has he's been there, done that, been in there with the best of them. He's won some, he's lost some. So it was a step-up fight for Tszyu and an opportunity for him to prove himself. Excuse me, man, my allergies is off the chain. But he proved himself. He ended up stopping, man, Tony Harrison was showing his ass. That whole press conference, you know, he all in Australia with his shirt off at the press conference and Debo's laid back, chilling. He laughing, playing around. He thought it was a game. But Tim Tszyu put some hands on that boy. And yeah, he ended up stopping Tony Harrison. I hate he had to go out like that, but you know, it is what it is. Tony Harrison always look good till he get hit. And once he get hit, you never know how he gonna respond to it. But, and them rings was small too. Like, they got some real small rings out there. And, you know, it's by design because Tim Tszyu he's a strong puncher. And him being the A-side, if he can make you come all the way to Australia, you know what I'm saying, he gonna set all the rules, the gloves, the ring size, the referee, etc., etc. But he ended up stopping my boy in the 9th round. TKO, fanned him about 3-4 uppercuts in a row. He was just sitting there taking it, on the ropes, just taking it. Hey, my dog went out like that, but it is what it is. But that made Tim Tszyu a factor. You know what I'm saying? So that brought more hype to him and Charlo actually getting in the ring and fighting each other. That made that fight meaningful. Moving on to March 25th, you had Jose Ramirez versus Richard Commey on the Top Rank event. I mean, both of these fighters, you know, Jose Ramirez I respect Jose Ramirez. He's a good fighter, tough. Comes to fight. Richard Commey is kind of just. He's a name, but he's pretty much just a punching bag with a name right now. He's just a name to put on your resume. He ain't really beat nobody of substance. All his major fights that he fights somebody that's on the top level, he always come out on the short end of the stick. So I wasn't expecting Richard Commey to win anyway, which he didn't. Jose Ramirez got the dub, 11th round KO. And in my opinion, one of the best cards of the year. On March 25th, when you had Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez, a grudge match. You know, they've been going back and forth for years. Caleb Plant was coming off a knockout victory over Darrell, where he stopped him. Was that a touchdown? Oh, this game got good. That's that Bama Texas game in the background. But he was coming off his a knockout victory after losing to Canelo. So he came with some momentum. You know, he got a new trainer, Breadman. And, you know, David Benavidez is the quote-unquote boogeyman at 168. So it was interesting to see them actually get in the ring and lock horns. And I thought Benavidez would be a lot bigger than Caleb Plant, but he wasn't. And Caleb Plant looked like a masterclass boxer. The first 5 rounds, he made it look pretty easy on Benavidez. He outboxed him pretty thoroughly. But, you know, Caleb Plant got stamina issues. Once he got tired and he started slowing down just a bit, and his instincts weren't like they was at the beginning of the fight, Benavidez started landing punches. It was just downhill from there. And Benavidez just started piling it on, so it was pretty much a fight of momentum. Caleb Plant had the momentum the first 5 rounds. David Benavidez had the momentum like the last 7, and he was piling it on. Caleb Plant did everything in his power to not hit that canvas. He was holding on for dear life, and he had some help from the referee as well. But, you know, David Benavidez got the stoppage, and it was a great fight, and it had a great undercard too. Chris Colbert versus Jose Raul Valenzuela. Chris Colbert was coming up from 130. This is a boxer who was having an identity crisis. First, he was known as Lil B-Hop. Now, and he from Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Going by Lil B-Hop, who from Philly. Then he started calling himself Prime Time. You know, we know it's only one Prime Time. You know what I'm saying? And, you know what I mean? I said I ain't gonna get into the theatrics, but dude is a character. But he's coming off an L. He lost to Luis Garcia, the one that fought Tank Davis. but he moved up from 130 up to 135. And Rayu, he trains with David Benavidez's father. He be putting in work with that camp. And he dropped Chris Colbert in the first round, hit him with a nasty little hook. And to my surprise, Chris Colbert got up, he fought back, and he fought hard for the rest of that fight. Like, he really showed that he had some heart. He showed that he had some dog in him. And he was stepping to Ryu. And Ryu, he was doing his thing, and he was, at that point, he knew he could hurt him, so he was kind of just loading up on his shots and kind of just picking and choosing his shots. And he almost, he hurt Chris Colbert a few times. But I think the judges was leaning towards Chris Colbert because he was coming forward majority of the fight. He was, he was controlling the ring, and he was pushing the pace of the fight. He was controlling the pace. And a lot of people thought it was a robbery, but they gave it to Chris Colbert. And it was a great fight, though, very entertaining. And the fight after that was Jesus Ramos versus Joey Spencer. I wasn't too familiar with Jesus Ramos. I heard his name, but I was familiar with Joey Spencer because Joey Spencer, he had a lot of hype around him. And, he got a lot of TV time. So I didn't know how this fight was going to turn out. But when they got in the ring and I seen how big Jesus Ramos was, I was like, man, this... First thing that caught my attention was that man back. Like, his back, he built like a Ninja Turtle. You know what I'm saying? Hunched over. And he looked like the Winter Soldier in that. Like, his mentality was just assassinate. But to my knowledge, Joey Spencer caught him out. So, they got in the ring, they locked horns, and I think Joey Spencer had the wrong game plan from the start. He was clearly the smaller man. But he chose to stand right in front of him and prove how tough he was and how strong he was, and to his detriment, because he got dropped in the first round. And after that, man, he put the beats on that boy. You know what I'm saying? He put the beats on him, stopped him in the seventh round TKO. Moving on to April, had AJ versus Franklin. AJ won, unanimous decision. April 8th, you had Shakur Stevenson fighting a nigga named Yoshi. First fight at 135, Shakur looked good. He looked strong, dropped dude a couple times, got the W. But it was, I never heard of Yoshi outside of the Mario Kart video game. So Shakur did what he was supposed to do. You had Keyshawn Davis on the undercard versus Anthony Yigit. Keyshawn is good. He's very talented. I'm just waiting for him to step up in competition. He's fighting somebody named Yigit. You know what I'm saying? And it took him 9 rounds to get him up out of there. April 8th, you had what I think is the upset of the year. You had Sebastian Fundora versus Brian Mendoza. Brian Mendoza's coming off a victory off of Gabriel Rosado, which put him in good position. Sebastian Fundora has been getting a lot of hype around him because he's tall. But I knew it was a matter of time. And he had a big win over Erickson Lubin. But I knew it was a matter of time. He too tall, he too thin, and he stays in the pocket. He don't use his height or his length. So I knew it was a matter of time, but Sebastian was winning that fight pretty handily in my opinion. But Mendoza kept fighting. He showed a lot of heart. And he landed, I think he landed a right hand. It was either right or left. And it buckled Fundora. And, Fundora backed up and he caught him with another one and sent him to the ground with another one. Fundora set up. He was so disoriented, like he was looking at the referee count, but, he was so out of it. He was just sitting there shaking his head. And a lot of people were surprised by that, including myself. And I think that was the upset of the year. Might have been KO of the year, too. So he stopped him with a 7th round KO. April 15th, you had Joe Joyce, a factor in the heavyweight division, versus somebody named Zane. Joe Joyce got the beats put on him, caught the UKI, got stopped in the 6th round. April 22nd, a fight that was long overdue. Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia. They've been building this fight for years. I don't know why. Ryan Garcia is not who, they say he is. He's an internet sensation. They gas him up. He never was that good. He's never fought top competition. He's only fought one. I think he's fought one champion his whole career, and you know, they gassed him up, and I wasn't gonna buy this fight either. You know what I'm saying? Cause I hate supporting bullshit, but I ended up buying this fight. I think I invited some people wanted to see it. I invited some people over. My house then became the spot for the fights. But you know, Ryan Garcia came out. He showed his inexperience. Tank took advantage. Ryan got a little hype in the second round, started coming forward because he thought he was doing some damage. Tank ducked something, hit him with a left over the top, dropped him. After that round was pretty much just surviving. Tank was, you know, building his momentum as he was going. And Tank just outclassed him. You know what I'm saying? Hit him with a body shot. A lot of people saying Ryan Garcia quit, but they didn't take that shot, and they don't know what that feel like. And could he have gotten up? Yes. But should he have gotten up? You know, who's to say? It was only a matter of time anyway. But Tank got the stoppage, 7th round KO. Cinco de Mayo weekend, Canelo versus John Ryder. Canelo moved like a sucker. He been undisputed since 2021. It's a lot of people he should fight. A lot of people he can fight that he's avoiding on purpose. But he ended up fighting John Ryder. Somebody I ain't even, you know what I mean? It went the whole 12, unanimous decision. May 13th, the week after that, Rolly Romero versus the Aztec Warrior. Rolly is ass. Rolly is cheeks, bruh. Just to be honest with you. For some reason, he's coming off a knockout stoppage loss to Tank Davis and got a title shot his very first fight at 140, courtesy of the Mayweathers and the politics. But he fought somebody that was like he gotta be at least 45, 50. And it was a competitive fight. And he actually dropped Rolly. And the ref was on some BS. Rolly started swinging. And the sequence when he was throwing punches where they stopped it, he didn't even land no punches. He threw like 8 to 10 punch combination. Didn't even land no punches. And the ref ended up waving it off, which was some BS. There's been a lot of BS. But they gave that fight to Romero, so he's a belt holder at 140. The next big fight after that, you had Devin Haney versus Vasyl Lomachenko. Now we're moving on to May 20th, a top rank event. Devin Haney has definitely worked his way up the ranks. He done got it out the mud. He started from ground zero. Him and his pops, they're blazing the trail as far as, you know, putting your career in your own hands and setting the standard for your own destiny, you know, creating your own destiny. And they put themselves in position to get the belts by going over the top rank, beating Kambosos twice. He's been wanting to fight Lomachenko. Lomachenko finally stepped up to the plate because Haney had something to offer, which was undisputed, all the belts. I thought it was a competitive fight. It was an entertaining fight. And honestly, I think Devin Haney won pretty easily. Is that another touchdown? It is. I thought Devin Haney won pretty easily. The thing with Lomachenko is he starts too late. The first half of the fight, he gives up a lot of the rounds the first half of the fight. The first 5, 6 rounds of the fight, he gives up a lot of rounds. He did that with Teofimo Lopez as well. He even did that with Jermaine Ortiz. And he tries to come on late at the end of the fight. And there was a lot of casuals that tuned into that fight, and a lot of people were screaming robbery because Lomachenko finished strong. He had maybe 4 rounds to where he won decisively, and it was consecutive rounds. So I think people was just looking at, oh, well, the last thing I saw was Lomachenko winning the later rounds, but the most important round, which is what I think got Devin Haney in the fight, was, you know, he got his shit together. He put it together in the 12th, and he pulled it out, and he got a unanimous decision, which I thought was pretty clear. I thought it was a clear 7-5. I can see how you can score 8-4. Devin Haney, honestly. But that was a major fight. Another notch on Devin Haney belt. His second time defending undisputed, which a lot of people don't do. A lot of people don't defend undisputed once they win. A lot of people kind of just give up the belts once they win. Like, all right, I'm undisputed. I did what I was trying to do. I'm going ahead and move up and drop these belts. But Devin Haney is choosing to push himself. He's choosing to fight top competition and challenge himself and even drain himself, because he don't need to be at 135. He needs to move up, which he is, and we'll talk about that. But that was a great victory for Devin Haney, one of the marquee fights of the year, definitely. Moving on to June, you had Teofimo Lopez versus Josh Taylor, the former undisputed champion at 140 pounds. Teo ain't been looking too good at 140. Josh Taylor ain't been looking too good his most recent fights. He done lost a couple belts. Some people thought he lost his last fight to Jack Catterall. But Teo just outclassed him. Like, just thoroughly outclassed him. He whooped him. It wasn't nothing Josh Taylor could do. He was banking on landing something big, landing that left hand. He thought he was going to bully Teo, but he couldn't catch up with him. Couldn't adjust to the speed, couldn't cut off the ring. He just got outclassed. Shout out to Teo. He won that pretty easily. And that made him a unified champion at 140, which makes him a big factor at 140 now officially. June 17th, you had Tim Tszyu back in the ring versus Carlos Ocampo. Carlos Ocampo was known for getting stopped by Errol Spence in the first round. Tim Tszyu was coming off the hype of beating Tony Harrison and possibly fighting Charlo. He ended up fighting Carlos Ocampo, stopped him in the first round. Ain't no big about that. He stopped him in the first round. It's been done before. But it was the second big knockout victory he had this year, so he's starting to gain a lot of traction and is building up that fight with him and Charlo. So everybody thinking that's the next fight is him and Charlo, but we'll touch on that as well. Regis Prograis fought June 17th as well. He fought a nigga named Zorilla. Didn't look too good. Didn't look that good at all. Regis won. He pulled it out barely. I think it was a majority decision. Regis has the thing of fighting down the competition. I honestly think Regis is at the down slope of his career, and I think his best years are behind him. I don't think he's been the same since he lost to Josh Taylor. He's never really reached his full potential. He's strong. He got a name, and he's a credible opponent. But I don't think he can beat any of the elite fighters. But he pulled that out by the skin of his teeth. The Rougarou. Moving on to July. I don't know. June 22nd, you had George Kambosos versus Maxie Hughes. George Kambosos' first fight back since losing to Devin Haney twice. And he fought Maxie Hughes, excuse me. George lost. Kambosos lost. But Maxie Hughes is not the bigger name, and they trying to set up George Kambosos versus another name who I'm not going to mention, but that's politics. That gave him the fight. It is what it is. That's boxing. Keyshawn Davis fought somebody named Francisco Patera. Dude was pretty sturdy. He even got dropped mid-fight, and he kept fighting. He came to fight. And Keyshawn had to go the whole 10 rounds. It wasn't really an impressive victory, but it was a necessary victory for him. So he got the dub. June 24th, you had Carlos Adames versus Julian J. Rock Williams at 160 pounds. Carlos Adames is pretty much the champion, while Jamal Charlo is he's out doing whatever he's doing for whatever reason why he's doing it. He ain't fought since 2021. Somehow he's still the champion. He still got the belt. So Carlos Adames is the interim WBC champion. So that was a pretty good fight, him and J-Rock. But you know how J-Rock is, similar to Tony Harrison. He got all the skills, but eventually, if you hit him, you don't know how you're going to respond. Carlos is very strong, and he ended up landing some shit that had J-Rock hurt, and the ref ended up stopping the fight, which I don't blame him. It was a lot of people didn't like it, but I didn't blame him. A lot of people talking about, people need to go out on their shield and either let them get knocked out, let them fall. But the people who saying that they ain't gonna pay these people hospital bills. They ain't gonna take care of their kids. You know what I'm saying? All they gonna do is complain. And you know, if that person really gets some brain damage or that person die in the ring, you know, they gonna act like, you know, boxing is a problem. So I ain't mad at the ref. You know, if you hurt, you can't really defend yourself. If you're not really coherent and they decide to stop the fight, I'm cool with that. I don't want to see nobody get hurt. On the undercard, you had Erickson Lubin versus Luis Arias. Erickson was coming off his knockout loss to Sebastian Fundora, where he had the the Martin head. He had the Martin face when he squared up with Tommy Hitman Hearns. Erickson Lubin came back. He looked sharp, but you know, he fought somebody who was pretty much a journeyman. But he was the first person to stop Luis Arias in the 5th round. Moving on to July, you had Jared Anderson versus Charles Martin. On the top ranked card, Jared Anderson has a lot of hype behind him. He's young, he's energetic, he's very talented. His potential is through the roof. And his initial opponent ended up pulling out for some reason. I can't remember why. But they threw in the vet, Charles Martin, who done been in there with top-notch competition. And at first, it looked like, you know, Jared Anderson was just going to outclass him. But Charles Martin did something interesting to where he decided to where he just going to drop his nuts and he going to come forward and he going to swing at him. And he going to bring the fight to Jared Anderson. And when he did that, he showed a lot of holes in Jared Anderson defense. He pulled straight back. A lot of times he don't really defend himself. And he showed that he can get hurt, because when Charles Martin actually started coming forward and bringing a fight to him, he was doing damage. And I damn near thought he was going to stop Jared Anderson. And for some reason, he stopped doing it. Like after that round, he went right back to doing what he was doing previously. And Jared Anderson got his confidence back and started boxing and landing pop shot and stuff like that. But the last round of the fight, Charles Martin did it again. He dropped his nuts, balled his fist up, and he just came forward and he brought the fight to Jared Anderson. And he hurt him again. So I was a little confused why Charles Martin wasn't fighting like that once he realized that it was effective and it was working. And he actually could have stopped Jared Anderson if he would have kept applying that pressure. But, you know, I ain't going to get into the politics. I'm strictly going to focus on the fight. But I don't know why he took that approach, because he could have won that fight. But Jared Anderson pulled it off. On July 8th, you had Jaron Ennis fighting Romain Villa. Both of them was on that undercard of that Tank Davis fight in January. They both won, and it was an IBF mandatory. Jaron Ennis became the IBF, some type of IBF champion, with Spence still being out. He ain't fought yet. So he was called some type of IBF champion. And it was his first time headlining the card. It was a decent card. And a lot of people had questions about Boots because of his last performance against Karen, who was moving. But I knew he would shine this fight because Romain Villa don't move. Like, he just come forward like Michael Myers. He's gonna be there. He's gonna be right in front of you. So he's not going nowhere. He's pretty much an open book. He's textbook. Come forward, high guard. Everything he throws is a hard punch. You can see it coming. You can time it. You can move around it. Give him angles. And Boots shined like he was supposed to. And a lot of people saying Boots back. He this, he that. Which he's a great talent. He's an extraordinary talent. But I still have to see it against the top competition. And him beating him, a flat-footed fighter that comes forward, doesn't prove to me that he's fixed what he needed to fix after what I saw against Karen. You know what I'm saying? So he went from having to cut off the ring and be smart and adjust and go to the body to break his opponent down and put in the work, to somebody that was just going to stand right in front of him. So it didn't show that he actually proved his point. But he got the 10th round knockout. Shout out to him. You had Frank Martin fighting the week after that. I don't know the dude's name, Akuna Matana, whoever he fought. But Frank didn't look that good. He was fighting in spurts. There's a lot of times he wouldn't let his hands go, and he was getting outworked. And he just was hesitant, and he was giving up a lot of rounds to the point to where he could have lost the fight. It became questionable, and he turned the pressure on in the championship rounds. His coach was finally able to get through to him, Derrick James, Derrick James got a lot on his plate. He got a lot on his plate, so it's kind of hard for him to focus and do everything he got to do when he got AJ, he got Ryan Garcia, he got Errol Spence, he got Frank Martin, he got Jermell Charlo. He got too much going on right now. So it's starting to show in the and it's starting to translate to the ring, to where his fighters aren't putting on their best performances. They're not all the way locked in, and they're not fighting up to their potential or their standard. But Frank didn't look that good, but he ended up getting a victory, 12th round unanimous decision. But he had to pull out the championship rounds in order for him to get that victory. July 25th, you had Noe Inoue versus Stephen Coolboy Fulton. It was an early fight. I caught this before I went to work. This was like on a Tuesday. Brought him out to Japan. It was Monster Inui's first fight at the new division. I believe it's 122 pounds. He was undisputed the division prior to that. And he stepped up in his very first fight. He challenged the #1 fighter in the division, which I give him a lot of respect, because there was a lot of hype around him. People putting him #1, top 3 in their pound for pound list. And I didn't believe the hype. And I thought he was gonna get exposed. But he surprised me. He definitely surprised me. I call him Ryu. He came out there, he was boxing, he was jabbing up top, jabbing to the body. He had good angles, he had good timing, he had good confidence. You can see his IQ, you can see how he was working the ring. And Coolboy just had the wrong game plan. He came out with a wide stance, he looked nervous. He looked like he was really thinking about what was coming back at him. And it showed in his fighting style and his approach, and his game plan was all wrong. And he didn't make no adjustments. And Inui, he thoroughly outclassed Coolboy. He gave him a boxing lesson, which was the last thing I expected. I thought if anything, he had a puncher's chance. But for him to outbox Stephen Fulton the way he did, and for him to set up that shot by him jabbing to the body and setting up that right hand, he was setting that up the whole fight. For him to finally catch him with it, I believe in that 8th round, and to hit him with that hook to send him on his way, that was very impressive. That was very impressive. And he's everything that they said he was, and some. I give him a lot of credit for moving up, challenging himself, fighting the best fighter in the division. It was his first time even fighting a black fighter, which is crazy to me. And for him to come out there and for him to have that type of performance, it was, take my hat off to him. July 29th, the fight of, supposed to be this generational fight at the welterweight division. It's the first time to crown a 4-belt undisputed champion at 147 pounds. Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr. This fight's been building since 2017. As far as talking, them actually coming face to face and it becoming a thing was 2018. So this fight's been building for 5 years. I'm not gonna get into why this fight took so long to happen. That's a whole nother video. I'm gonna focus on what happened in the ring, because they actually got in there and they fought. The build-up was very respectful. They handled their business like grown men, and you knew they was coming to fight. You knew that they was gonna come to fight. They wasn't getting no haircuts. You know what I'm saying? They get no haircut. They was respectful during the press conference until that last one before the fight. They both looked a little drained, you know what I'm saying, after they weighed in. And a lot of people were saying Terrence Crawford, you know, was looking bad, and everybody was talking about how good Spence looked, but the fight showed the exact opposite. And I was leaning, my heart wanted Spence to win, because I think it's better for boxing if he wins with his story, since day one, he's been saying, I want to be the undisputed champion. I want to be undisputed. And he actually took the hard route. He took the stairs and he took the belt from every champion and gained 3 belts. He actually took the belt from him. And, you know, in Crawford, he hasn't fought the better competition. You know what I'm saying? He's been better than everybody he's fought, and he's been expected to win, but kudos to him. He showed his level, and he's won in dominant fashion. So my brain was saying Crawford probably, you know what I'm saying, he has more tools in the tool belt, but I was thinking, you know, Spence, you know, he bigger, he fought the better competition, he got the better story, and honestly, I just wanted him to win. But I had that same mentality up until like right before the fight. First of all, that undercard was trash. Like, they got to do better. They got to do better. This was one of the biggest fights. This fight we've been asking for years. The fans built this fight. The big wigs didn't want to give us this, but the fans built this fight up from the ground, and we finally got it. And the undercard that they put on was disgusting. It was disgusting. Pitbull Cruz's cheeks. I don't even know who he fought. You know what I'm saying? I can't even name. Nonito Donaire was on the undercard, but you know, he in his 40s. That whole undercard was cheeks. But Spence just looked too relaxed in the dressing room. Like, he looked like he was just chilling. He was actually acting like it was just another day at the office. And I seen Crawford in there listening to the like the Last Dragon. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna tell you when reality hit me, because I was still thinking, you know, Spence gonna pull this off. Reality hit me when I seen Terrence Crawford outfit with the fishnets on it. When I seen the fishnets, and I seen Eminem standing beside him, I knew it was a problem. I knew it was a problem. And I knew my pick was wrong. Like, I knew it when I seen that, because I saw he was ready. He was ready. And like, that boy meant business. Like, you ain't gonna put no fishnets on your shit unless you serious. And that's all he been saying, is he gonna fry some fish. Eminem didn't even rap, bro. He didn't even rap. He just held the mic and just walked with him. I said, yeah. I said, Crawford finna whoop this boy. Like, I knew he was gonna win. I didn't know he was gonna whoop him. I knew he was gonna win. Spence looked the same to me that first round. He came out throwing that jab, pushing the pace, doing everything he said he was gonna do. But I'm not gonna speculate. Crawford whooped him, bro. He whooped him. He started landing that, he started jabbing. He came out southpaw off the rip. Like, he didn't switch, nothing. Like, immediately he came out in the southpaw position. And he started jabbing over Spence's jab. And he had a stiff jab. And when I seen him land that jab for the first time, and I saw how Spence's head snapped back and how he reacted to him and it hurt him, I was like, because my whole mentality was, if Crawford can't hurt Spence, he's gonna keep coming. And when he stopped him dead in his tracks, and when he dropped him in the second round, when they had a little situation where they like went into clinch and Crawford pushed him and that boy flew all the way across the ring. He showed, you know what I'm saying, Spence wasn't a stronger man in there. It was just downhill from there. And honestly, like, he whooped his ass thoroughly. But he honestly carried him a couple rounds too, because he could have stopped that earlier. But the fight ended up ending, in the 9th round? That fight could have been over in like the 4th or 5th, to be real with you. But he got a lot of respect for Spence. And he carried him. He let him live a little bit. And he powdered on towards the end to where the ref didn't have no choice. But that was the biggest fight of the year. Definitely the biggest fight of the year. And it did not live up to the hype. A lot of times, these big fights that we build up for years, they drag it out and drag it out and drag it out for whatever reason. And majority of the times, these fights do not live up to the hype. So it's good to fight and strike while the iron is hot. Anthony Joshua fought, but again, Derrick James Derrick James, he was giving Spence some good instructions, but Derrick James is a one-man band. Oh, Texas beat him. Derrick James is a one-man band. He got too much on his plate. AJ didn't look good early in the year. Frank Martin didn't look good early in July. Spence didn't look good at all. AJ fought August 12th. Robert Helenius. AJ didn't look good. He got the 7th round knockout, but AJ, man, he an accident waiting to happen. He ain't got his confidence. Man, forget AJ. But he didn't look good. Also, that same night, Emmanuel Navarrete versus Oscar Valdez. Navarrete, I believe he moved up. I think it's his second fight at 130. Fighting Oscar Valdez, who is training with Canelo's trainer, who's fighting with Canelo's trainer, who I also think is Cheeks. Oscar Valdez has gotten worse since he started training with him. Now Oscar Valdez is only looking to land the left hook. That's his whole mentality, is to land the left hook. He also hasn't looked the same since he got caught sipping that tea. If you know, you know. So Navarrete whooped that boy ass, man. I heard a lot of people talking about fight of the year. I don't know what fight they was watching, because that fight wasn't competitive. The only reason that fight went the distance is Navarrete hurt his hand. But Navarrete is he's an interesting fighter. He's very crafty. He's very unorthodox. He throws punches from a lot of different angles. He's weird, and but he's creative. He's crafty. He's strong, and I like him. He's very entertaining. All his fights are entertaining. So you're gonna have to come to fight, and you're gonna have to be somebody special to take his power, and to you're gonna have to hope he hurt his hand and he get tired, which he don't. But he's tough, throwback fighter. I actually like Navarrete, but he dominated that fight. Usyk versus Daniel Dubois. Usyk is still a unified champion. He got 3 out of the 4 belts at heavyweight by beating AJ. This is a controversial fight. Dubois was a mandatory, and it ain't no secret no more. Alexander Usyk doesn't like body shots, and he caught one to the stomach, and it was on the belt line, and he dropped immediately. And you know, if you get hit with a low blow, you're gonna grab them jewels. You know what I'm saying? And you're gonna be hunched over. A lot of people that get hit in the nuts, they hunched over and they grabbing their jewels. That boy fell straight back, and he was just leaning up against the ropes like, God damn. And like the ref just automatically, he didn't look to the side, he didn't check, they didn't go to the replay. They just automatically said low blow. You know what I'm saying? And they gave him like damn near 5 minutes to recover. And very controversial, because that should have been a stoppage. And I believe if the ref would have started counting, I believe Usyk might have got up. But he was thinking about it. But he milked it, and he know that wasn't a low blow. Dubois knows it wasn't a low blow, but he was able to recover, and the fight continued, and he was able to stop Dubois, I believe, in the 9th round. Also later that night on a different promotional company, Efe Ajagba versus somebody named Zane or something like that. Duzan and Zane got disqualified for throwing low blows. That was the theme. This was all on the same night. This was the theme for that night. The low blow. He hit Efe Ajagba low like 4 or 5 times. And credit to him, he kept getting up trying to fight, but they ended up calling that fight, and they disqualified the other dude. Jared Anderson fought, got the 5th round TKO. September 2nd, Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. rematch. Chris Eubank got his get back with a 10th round TKO. So those are all the fights that done transpired thus far in 2023. It's been a lot of good fights, a lot of big name fights going up against each other, a lot of entertaining fights. So far it's been a lot of good fights. And then we got a couple fights coming up that's we should be looking forward to. And I've been rocking about 50 minutes. All right, we going. All right, it's September now, so we approaching the fourth quarter of the year. You got Zhang versus Joe Joyce in a rematch, September 23rd. September 23rd, you got Richard Hitchison versus Jose Zapata. Richardson Hitchens, excuse me, at 140. He's a good fighter, talented boxer. It's definitely a step-up fight for him. He was supposed to be fighting, what's the name? Love. But Love pulled out the fight. But I'm looking forward to see what Hitchens brings to the table, if he's able to step up to the competition and still able to dominate and put on a boxing clinic. That'll definitely throw his name in the hat as one of the factors at 140, because there's a lot going on at 140, and they need to get in the ring and they need to sort that out. Because Haney done moved up, T.O. up there, Josh Taylor up there, Jose Ramirez up there. You got one of the Russells, Gary Russell, one of them up there, Antoine Russell. He up there, Regis. There's a lot going on up there. They gotta sort some stuff out. September 30th, you got Canelo Alvarez fighting Jermell Charlo, the smaller Charlo, coming up from 154 pounds. He pulling him up 14 pounds to fight him, which is a whole move in my opinion. Charlo also, he ain't fought since last May of 2022, because he broke his hand. In my opinion, Charlo should came back. He should have fought Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu was on a tear this year. He got a lot of hype behind him. That fight will get a lot of traction. He gonna get a big bag. That's a pay-per-view fight. You can sell that fight, and that will set the stage to the winner can fight. The winner of Spence and Terrence Crawford in the rematch, because they're supposed to line it back up in December. But he going up there to fight Canelo. I think he been too respectful. I don't think he gonna put forth his best effort. He been talking for years, and I think he wrote a check he ain't gonna be able to cash. Derek James is his trainer. He got a lot to prove, and he ain't been putting on no good performances. So it's a lot riding on the line for this. And I really hope, for Charlo's sake and for Derek James' sake, that they can pull this fight out. Because if they don't, shit gonna hit the fan, in my opinion. October, we got Gilberto Ramirez versus Joe Smith at 168 pounds. If nothing else, that should be a barn burner. They both gonna come to fight. 15th, you got Tim Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza, which I think is a dope fight. They both are warriors. They're gonna come prepared. Brian Mendoza coming off the upset of the year, knocking out Fundora. And then you got Tim Tszyu, like I said, been on a tear. So, and they stripping Charlo of the belt. He'll move it up. He done got stripped from the belt because he keep ducking and dodging Tim Tszyu, saying that, whatever the case may be. So he already lost the WBO belt. Rumor is he might lose the WBC belt. So that might end up being a unification, Brian Mendoza versus Tim Tszyu, but we'll see. Tyson Fury is fighting Francis Ngannou, October 28th, a UFC fighter. That fight is ass. Excuse me. Tyson Fury is a clown. Don't nobody care about that fight. Don't nobody want to see that fight. Shakur Stevenson and Frank Martin was supposed to fight in November. Word is they came to a deal. They had to do that by September 5th. They said the fight was official. Got news today that the fight was canceled. Frank Martin's side pulled out for whatever reason. So not too happy about that. I was looking forward to that fight. Devin Haney and Regis Prograis officially been announced. They fight December the 9th, somewhere in California. I'm looking forward to that fight. Devin Haney moving up to 140 pounds, going straight up to the #1 fighter in that division. Shout out to him, fighting for the WBC belt. Should be an interesting fight. I think Haney will pull it off. We'll break that down at a later time. Also, the Spence Crawford rematch. Spence activated his rematch, which is supposed to go down in December, which is what I'm hearing. And it's supposed to be moving up to 154 pounds. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to see what happens. See if he can make the adjustments. See if Derek James can make the adjustments. And we can see if Crawford's just really that, see if he's just really that good. Was it a fluke, or is he really like that? So we'll find that out in December. A couple of people that still haven't fought this year. Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz, Luis Ortiz in the heavyweight division. Ain't none of them fought. Cruiserweight, they ain't got no motion, so we ain't worried about them. Light heavyweight, Dimitri Bivol still ain't fought. I think he's getting blackballed for him actually beating Canelo. He was a cherry pick gone wrong. He done whooped Canelo. He done whooped Gilberto Ramirez, and he should be fighting Artur Beterbiev for undisputed. I don't know why ain't nobody pushing for undisputed fights at 175 pounds. They've been lollygagging around each other for too long. It's been years, and they still ain't fought. So I don't know what's going on with that. Super middleweight, you still got Edgar Berlanga and David Morrell, who still ain't stepped up and fought in competition. I think they fought this year, but they ain't fought nobody. They need to fight somebody. Middleweight, I think Triple G retired. Jamal Charlo, he still ain't fought. He getting slapped by Caleb Plant at the boxing events. Erislandy Lara still ain't fought this year. Word is he's supposed to fight Danny Garcia at 160 pounds, which is weird to me. But it is what it is. 154, Danny Garcia ain't fought. Jermell Charlo ain't fought, even though he's going to fight September the 30th. Welterweight, Virgil Ortiz ain't fought this year. Something happened with him. I don't know what's going on with his health situation. They need to figure that out. And by default, Stanionis ain't fought this year either because of the Virgil Ortiz situation. Keith Thurman still ain't fought this year. Yordenis Ugas ain't fought this year. But he will be fighting on the Canelo undercard, which is probably the second best, if not the first, definitely the second best undercard of the year, which you'll have Yordenis Ugas versus Mario Barrios on that undercard. And you'll also have Jesus Ramos versus Erickson Lubin on that undercard as well, which is going to be a barn burner. So it's going to be some good fights. It's going to be some good fights that night. I'm not looking forward to it. I will not pay for it. I can go and I'll tell you that now. I'm not supporting no BS no more. I done found my plug. So if I don't support you, I'm not a fan. I'm a supporter. So if I don't support how you moving, if I don't support who you fighting, then I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. But shout out to y'all. I appreciate y'all rocking with me. This is just a Coach Chris recap of boxing in 2023. There's been a lot of great fights. It's been a legendary year for boxing. A lot of legendary things have transpired. There's still a couple more fights to take place this year. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a great year. Be looking forward to more content coming. Boxing, football, basketball. I'll probably keep it sports on this channel, Coach Chris. But I appreciate y'all rocking with me. I shade to the audience. Until next time.